Hello everybody, this week's scenario is Recon. Recon features two rectangular zones that can be controlled by warcasters, warlocks, warjats, and battle engines for one control point. Two flags that can be controlled by solos, warcasters, and warlocks for one control point, and objectives that can be destroyed for one control point. Victory conditions consist of scoring 5 more control points than your opponent, or caster elimination. Hey guys, it's GG Will again. I just played my Bradigus list for this match. And it's Bradigus, 2 Wold Guardians, 3 Wold Wardens, a Wold Watcher, 2 Wold Whites, Shifting Stones, Black Clad Stone Shapers, and a Wayfarer. Great list. I enjoyed it a lot. It performed well again in this game. Highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It gets a lot of work done. I hope you guys enjoy.
For my Convergence list, I brought Eminent Configurator Orion with a battle group consisting of a Cipher, Conservator, Corollary, 2 Modulators, and the Prime Conflux. For support, I brought a set of Accretion Servitors, 2 sets of Attunement Servitors, 3 sets of Elimination Servitors, 1 set of Reflex Servitors, and 2 Algorithmic Dispersion Optifexes to help Orion get his spells where he needs.
Alright guys, so this game I was playing against Orion and Convergence. So I figured that Bradigus would probably be the best list to drop here. You're going to see that I'm going to deploy my stuff just pretty centrally, with my Wold Guardians being able to kind of bust either way to this obstruction in the center of the board. With my stones, I figured that it would be a good chance for me to be able to kind of teleport my stuff around that obstruction and maybe get some assassination potential, or maybe even just be able to get into some of his bid pieces that he needs to be effective before he gets his feet off, so that I can kind of remove his capabilities before they really hammer down on me. Unfortunately, my Bradigus model broke as I was trying to deploy, or maybe just before I was trying to deploy, so he's just stone right now. His whole body had fallen off, so sorry about that guys. Hopefully next time he'll be fixed.
After seeing my opponent's fairly symmetrical deployment, I followed suit. I deployed the Prime Conflux across from Bradigus to utilize that clear terrain lane and get him into the fight. A modulator went to the Prime Conflux's right to support that flank, while a second modulator and a Cipher supports my left flank. The Conservator I usually like to save as a later game piece, and he stays in front of my caster in the center, but he can also be used as a forward bait piece if I need to. My caster stayed in the middle to support the entire lane. Servitors were sprinkled along the line, and an ADO was sent to either flank to help get spells where they needed to go.
So here's my advanced deploy. I just need to place my stones, and once I get those placed, it'll be game time.
Only having my 3 Reflex Servitors to deploy, I sprinkle them across the entire front line to help jam up troops and deter pursuit.
So I won the roll off and decided to go first. here I was just I started this turn feeling like I just wanted to move forward and kind of mitigate my opponent's ability to just start shooting my heavies off the table. You know, that Orion feat giving him an additional die on damage rolls against models with an extra fury can be pretty gross, especially when turn 1 they start shooting your models and putting some real damage out there before you've even had a chance to really make sure you're going to be in position to hit them back. So I wanted to move in such a way that I could you know, maybe aggressively place myself the next turn, or start reaching some of his stuff, but not so far forward that I was going to be at the whims of my opponent. And you know, quite frankly, you know, watching my gameplay, seeing my gameplay, playing on clock more, I'm starting to realize that some of this stuff I just overthink. I think about it just way too much, over and over again, really. So it ends up being an issue when I start playing on clock, because I just lose so much time. Just rethinking the same things over and over again, and it just doesn't make a difference. So one of the things I have to start trying to practice here is just unpacking my stuff turn 1 a lot faster, and making sure that I get everything done in my first turn where nothing's really happening, in a more timely manner. So as you can see, I'm just kind of posturing up behind terrain and making sure that, like I said, next turn I'm going to be able to hopefully start trying to reach some of his stuff. The brightest feat's always great for pushing your models through clouds and stuff, so that you can be able to see your opponent's models. That fire cloud down in the bottom zone on my side is a bit of a pain, and kind of would have preferred the forest, but you know, my opponent got to choose sides since I chose to go first, and he definitely took advantage of that. Move my caster up on the hill and make sure I cast synergy. I don't want to have any mistakes without it in this game, and generally start getting ready for the next turn.
So here, after taking some quick measurements of possible magic bullet and firing angles, I go ahead and allocate 1 focus to my right modulator and 2 focus to the prime conflux, leaving Orion on 4. I go ahead and advance my reflex servitors and have them dig in, just to be a thorn in my opponent's side. I go ahead and move some elimination servitors up fairly aggressively, not knowing that I don't need to use them as shield guards mostly for this game, and they can just sort of be models to block positions and hold places. I go ahead and run the right modulator up into the zone and induct that focus to the prime conflux. At that point, I go ahead and get my ADO out of the way, so that he can potentially score the flag later. I activate Orion and cast Magic Bullet on the Prime Conflicts. And I cast Avenging Force on Orion. And then I move Orion up just out of kill box range. At this point, I go ahead and activate the Prime Conflicts. I move him forward his full 5 inches and target the rearmost shifting stone in the back with his range 15 arc flash generator. I realize I don't need to boost it to hit roll, so I go ahead and roll. I hit. I use the magic bullet to attack the druid in the back, who dies to the magic bullet. I boost damage against the shifting stone, but only cause it 4 points of damage. So I use another focus to reload the arc flash generator and finish that stone off, and I induct all of that focus to the corollary, except for one which goes to the conservator. I go ahead and measure some ranges for the homing rip spikes, and find that that front stone is in range, so I fire at it and get a hot damage roll, doing 4 damage onto that lead stone of the second unit. I go ahead and trample the conservator up. That way I can utilize Orion's Field Marshal Repo, and I move him up kind of as a bait piece and see if my opponent will take it. After moving some servitors up to support, I activate the corollary, who gets a free focus for being close to Orion. And he fills up and just comes in right behind Orion. I then go ahead and activate the Cipher and run him to induct over to the modulator, making sure I stay out of threat ranges of those nasty wolves. I go ahead and finish off by running the modulator up just out of the zone so that he can use his guns on the next turn. And I use the servitors to go ahead and flood that entire zone and try to keep his heavies off of mine. And at the end of the round, I realized that, again, I forgot to put an ionization servitor into play.
Alright, so my opponent moved up, popped some shots off, nothing too crazy, a little bit of what I expected. But right now I'm looking and I'm seeing a big, juicy colossal that I'm thinking might be within my realm of trying to get after. But I'm just not sure. So I start by just kind of collecting all my stuff and making sure that I upkeep synergy and that everything's going to be kind of playing out, at least in a logistical way, the way that I need it to this turn. This turn ends up costing me a lot of time because I spent a lot of time measuring things and trying to figure out where and how I want to go. That servitor out in front of me is a pain in my ass because he's directly blocking my charge lane there. And yeah, I just want to see it. Go ahead and take out that colossal early on if I can, because that would be a huge blow to my opponent if he lost that colossal so early in the game. I've played against my opponent here, Matt, a few times, and he's a great player. Plays multiple factions, and I've really enjoyed all my games with him. I've learned some stuff with him, and he's gotten really good at placing this stuff in such a way to make you feel like you have a play, you waste time on it, only to find out that you just wasted all that time and there wasn't any play to begin with. Right now I'm really only considering contesting scenario. I don't think I'm going to be able to win on scenario just because he has so many servitors to throw out there as just plain garbage. And if I start trying to spend my activations just dealing with his servitors, then his heavies are just going to demolish my army as I deal with these servitors. So I kind of have to ignore the servitors except for maybe a proccing synergy on my smaller war beasts, and that's just about it. Here we're getting started because I want to make sure that I proc synergy before I do anything with my bid models, my bid war beasts. So I go to hit this servitor and I boost my attack roll, and I needed a 6 and I rolled a 2-1-1. So I completely missed, but then we measure out and figure out that I was in range to charge, but I was not in range to boost the attack roll, so I would have probably missed anyways. So we just went ahead and removed one of those Fury, just so I couldn't spend it. So I'm going to go ahead and move another one of my light beasts to, again, proc synergy. That's all I'm really interested in. I'm trying to make sure that I keep this beast inside my control range. This time I hit, and I just completely demolished that servitor. And synergy goes up to 1. Here my opponent was just asking what this model was, so he did look it up on his war room so he'd be aware. Measure to make sure that my base is still going to be inside my control range, because I don't want to miss attacks unnecessarily, and these guys aren't necessarily the best map. With synergy up to 1, their match sits. So I definitely want to boost that hit. So now synergy is up to 2. Which is always good. Makes your heavies hit harder and more accurately, which is definitely what we want. Here I am just wasting a bunch of clock time talking and not paying attention to the game, while also wasting time thinking about what it is I want to do. So for anybody who's looking at playing it on plot in the future, make sure that you're really focusing on your game while you're playing on plot. Otherwise, it'll make a huge difference. It ends up making a huge difference this game. I have 1 stone from that unit left. My opponent shot one off the table, and then the fire from the fire cloud just blew up the other model, which was awful. I've determined at this point that I cannot reach his Colossal with that heavy, so I just wanted to kind of clear a charge lane in order to give the Warden there a clear line of path to either that heavy or the Colossal. At this point, synergy has reached 3, and here I'm looking at whether or not I can reach that heavy. If I can get my heavy to his, I'm pretty sure that I'm just gonna wipe it right off the table. My opponent gives me some help here on how I can charge. So at this point, I just want to kind of move this heavy up as far as I can go, because I don't want his Colossal charging my Guardian. I figure I put the Warden there. He has to either commit a heavy in front of the Colossal or commit the Colossal to the Warden. And the heavy is destroyed, so that's good activation there. At this point, a lot of my movements here are just about posturing for the turn to come. I'm fairly certain that I'm going to lose that Warden there, so I want to move my 2 Guardians in a position to where next turn I can either, if he doesn't move his Colossal, I can just kind of feet and push my Guardians up and wail on that Colossal and take it out. And I just want to make sure that he's not going to start storing in any of the zones.
after seeing that my opponent did take my bait, but used that to block his 2 Wold Guardians from retaliation by my Prime Conflicts, I utilize Avenging Force to move the Cypher up and fire Flare on the front Wold Warden, hitting him to reduce his defense by 2. My Servitor dies in a fire. In my control phase, I go ahead and allocate 1 focus to the Prime Conflicts, 3 focus to the Modulator on my left side, and I upkeep Avenging Force. I activate Orion first. I debate about aiming and shooting, but none of those Wold Guardians can be pushed, so I don't bother to use the Tensor Lattice. Instead, he stays there, camps 2, configures for Mat, and feats. At this point, I start my activations on my left flank, moving a lot of the servitors out of the way. I make some attacks on the Wold Wardens in the back. Some of them even hit, causing a single point of damage each time they do. I do, however, move up an Attunement Servitor and manage to land a flare on the Wold Wight in front of me. I go ahead and charge the front Wold Wight with the Modulator and induct that 1 focus off to the Cypher. Onto Orion's feet, because that Wold Wight has Fury on him, I get an additional die for damage. So I go ahead and hit with my first attack roll, and the first damage roll one-shots the Wold Wight, leaving me actually a little bit hurting because I don't get a chance to induct the rest of the focus over to the Cypher. After taking out the Wold Wight, I reposition the Modulator back into the rubble and just on the edge of the zone. Luckily, I have a corollary that can fix that mistake for me, so the corollary advances a little bit and gives the Cypher 2 more focus to fill up to full. I then activate the Cypher and walk him up to the Wold Warden in front of me, hoping to take it out, because if I don't take it out, there's no landing spot for the Prime Complex. After I buy my first attack, I realize that the next attack is likely to kill the Wold Warden due to the additional dice of damage from the feat. So I go ahead and boost the damage on the second bot attack, making sure that I can induct 2 focus over to the Prime Complex so that he can have 3. The Cypher then repositions back to his original spot so that I have a clear lane for the Prime Conflicts. The Prime Conflux then charges the Wold Guardian that has Fury on him, hoping to drop him early with the Capacitor Discharge off the initial attacks. I place an Ionization Servitor after my charge movement to catch both of them in Ionization. My first initial generates 3 Capacitor Discharges, but at dice -8. Even with an additional die, the first 2 fail to break armor. I do get 4 or 5 points of damage with the second Capacitor Discharge. And then the second initial does 1 Capacitor Discharge. And between that and a bot attack, that Wold Guardian is finished. I have enough focus to buy 2 more attacks, so I take those 2 attacks on the second Wold Guardian. I get an additional dice to hit, not that I need it, due to the feat, and the 2 initials just dent him pretty hard but don't kill him. I do, however, induct all 3 of that focus over to the modulator. Over on my right flank, I use an Attunement Servitor to try and flare the Wold Right, and a lucky deviation gets both War Beasts. I can't quite reach the Wold Right, or the rear War Beast, without charging, so I go ahead and charge the rear War Beast. The additional dice of damage let me finish him quite easily with my bot attacks. However, I don't have any extra focus after using all my bot attacks to take on the Wold Right, so maybe charging was a bit of a mistake. However, I use the modulator's reposition to kind of reposition in front of the Wold Right and block him. For the rest of the turn, I move up an Elimination Servitor, take a shot at the Druid, who misses, of course. I then reposition a lot of Elimination Servitors and Attunement Servitors to support further, and I move the Algorithmic Dispersion Optifex on my right up to the flag and towing into the zone to try and score.
Oh man, that turn hurt more than I expected it to. I knew that feat was coming, but I was not expecting that thing to mollywop me as hard as it did. And right now I am just trying to figure out how I am going to answer all the losses that I just suffered, and if I even can. My thought right now is that I am going to go ahead and probably pop feet, move a lot of my models from right to left, and try to get 2 heavies onto that Colossal and get that thing off the table, because if that thing stays another turn, I'm just done. There's no way I'm going to be able to come back from that. So I really need to get that thing off the table and then try to mitigate my losses after that. So I know that if I want to be able to take out the Colossal, I'm going to have to be able to prot Synergy and probably have to boost the strength on some models with my Stone Shapers. I also need to try to move my stones that are kind of blocking the path of one of my Wold Wardens. And I need to get rid of the little bot that's blocking his path for feet. So this Stone Shaper is just going to walk up and div that Guardian +2 strength. That stone teleported forward, staying in the zone, and removed Fury from that War Beast there, the Wold White. And here again I needed, I think it was a 6 to hit, and I boosted and I rolled again a 2-1-1, missing that model. So I'm getting a little frustrated with these Wold Whites, just missing this game. Here I decided I'm going to spray to try and kill his model. I end up killing his model, I think. But then I roll against my own die, and I rolled Boxcars for damage, and end up doing some actual damage to my own beast. Which was, isn't that always how it goes? Whenever you try to attack through your own models, you absolutely molly stomp your own models, only to barely scrape by, or not even scrape by, when trying to get rid of your opponent's models. But it is what it is. I got rid of that guy there, and that makes life a little bit easier. So I go ahead and prot Synergy off of one of my Wardens there, just because it's more important to get rid of the Colossal than to do work with that Warden up there. Here I'm just trying to clear out that Guardian's path and prot Synergy one more time before I commit to destroying the Colossal. So I decided to go ahead and pop feet, and I choose 5 inches as my movement, but my caster starts when he contacts the Stone Shaper. So my warden there, that is just around the obstruction. He's at +2 strength from the Stone Shaper, and then he's +2 power to his damage rolls from synergy. So he's a whopping power 20. I think he's hitting that straight dice on this Colossal, and he starts going ham, just absolutely tearing this Colossal a new one. He ends up getting rid of 80 side plus on the Colossal before everything's said and done. Just really went to town on that Colossal. And then it's the Guardian's turn, who's up to a power plus strength of 23, which is then just dice +3. So he's really just gonna finish off this Colossal no problem. I probably could have moved this model better and not gone straight at him like I did. Instead have gone around a little bit to try and utilize my feet movement to keep him from danger. But you know, you play, you learn, and you stop making these dumb mistakes. So we got rid of the Colossal. At that point, what I wanted it done for the turn had pretty much got done.
Losing the Prime Conflux was expected, but it still hurt quite a bit. Due to the Prime Conflux's loss triggering Avenging Force, I used that to go ahead and move the Cypher back up and fire a Flare in the maintenance phase, tagging both of the War Beasts with Flare. In my control phase, I go ahead and upkeep Avenging Force. I allocate 1 more to the Corollary, who's going to be at 2 after this allocation, and I allocate 1 to the Modulator on my left. The fact that this list was designed to take on massive infantry swarms, it struggles a little bit against armor like this, so to maintain any kind of advantage in attrition, I have to do a lot of work on the feet turn, and hopefully sacrificing the Prime Conflux for those 2 heavies is going to be enough work for that. Hopefully I'll get a 3rd heavy with the Cypher here in a minute. I go ahead and activate Orion, who configures for his mat. He then sacrifices his movement to aim. He's going to cast Magic Bullet on the left modulator, and he's going to fire his range 13 tensor lattice on the rearmost wold. This lets me push Bradigus back into a shifting stone 2 inches, and hopefully that's going to reduce his threat projection into the next turn by a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and boost the damage on the wold, not doing very much, but that leaves me with 1 to camp.
Well, where they may have a point.
I go ahead and activate the corollary so that it can fill up to 3 by being in proximity with the caster. It moves up in range to give all 3 focus to the Cypher. On my left flank, I charge a Reflex Servitor into the Druids, and then hopefully to kill one, or if I miss, maybe the Blast will kill or seriously hurt both of those Druids. I do miss, and the Blast does nothing to the rearmost wold, but it does do 4 damage to the wold in the front. I move up some Elimination Servitors, who of course can almost never hit a Druid in a trench by themselves. I do manage to get one to the side, however, who also misses the Druid. An Attunement Servitor also flares that rear War Beast, or tries to flare the Druid rather, and misses, instead flaring the War Beast. The modulator then activates and fires at the wold. He hits and triggers Magic Bullet to go into the Druid that already has 4 damage on him, which easily kills that Druid. I boost the damage and put a few points of damage onto the wold and then miss the second shot. I reposition the modulator a little bit out of the way of that wold and move some servitors in to block any kind of counterattack from that wold warden. And then activate a servitor and move it out of the way in order to clear the lane for the Cypher. Seeing that there's no way to charge either of the wolves so that I can engage both of them, I settle for just advancing the Cypher into the frontmost wold. Even though the Cypher is my hardest hitting piece in this list other than the Prime Conflicts, outside of Orion's feat I'm going to have trouble dealing with all this armor, and that goes to be the case here as well. After taking both my initials and buying 3 more attacks, the Wold Guardian still has 3 boxes left after all 5 hits. All the focus spent on the Cypher was inducted to the modulator, and I go ahead and plan to see if the modulator can engage both of those war beasts. I moved my 2 elimination servitors up to take rear shots into the engaged Wold Guardian. Both of them hit, causing 2 more points of damage, leaving the Wold Guardian on 1 box. I move the modulator in to attack the wold. I boost the damage on that first initial to ensure that the PAL 14 will overcome his armor and do that one last remaining box of damage. I then take my second initial and buy 2 more attacks, and it ends up finishing the wold right as well, which ended up being okay for me. I reposition back towards the back corner of the table to try and avoid any more retaliation and set up for future shots.
Okay, so I keep losing heavies, and man, is it starting to really bite. I'm looking at my clock, and I know that I need to move fast this turn because I am quickly running out of time. I spent a lot of my clock earlier just bullshitting and not playing the game, so I need to make sure I go quickly this turn and get things done in a nice timely manner. And so I quickly come up with a plan that my warden there at the top is going to prot synergy, and then my bottom warden with a +2 strength from one of my stone shapers plus 1 on synergy would be enough to go ahead and take out one of his heavies in the bottom zone, and then my caster should attempt to go ahead and take out the heavy that's sitting in the front center. At this point, I'm getting pretty desperate. Like, my caster's gonna have to start doing work if I want to attempt to even have a hope of winning this game. But I'm also racing against the clock when my opponent has plenty of clock time left. So here I'm just trying to hurry and get these rolls out and kill this model so that I can move on to my next activation. So at this point, synergy's up by 2, and I move my caster in. Here again, I made another simple mistake. I have reached 2 with my caster. There's no reason to get up on this war jack like this. I can pull back to my 2-inch reach and kind of stay a little bit safer around that obstruction and make sure that things aren't going to unnecessarily reach my caster.
With Bradigus so far forward and him closing out on my flag so that I can't easily clear zones and go for the scenario when I have to start planning for my assassination. Since Bradigus killing the Cypher triggered Avenging Force, I go ahead and move Orion up and fire at Bradigus with the Tensor Lattice, which misses because Orion is still configured for his melee attack score. I allocate 2 focus to the corollary and keep the rest on Orion. The corollary goes ahead and activates, getting a free focus for being so close to Orion, who then moves over and gives all 3 focus to the modulator. He then repos to hopefully block any kind of line that Bradigus might have on that modulator. I run the servitor that was engaging Bradigus out of his melee range, who dies to the free strike. It's very important I don't try to shoot Bradigus to death while he's engaged with the silly servitor. I then move a 2-man servitor up just outside of 2 inches, who misses but yet still manages to flare Bradigus due to the close AoEs. After that, I activate Orion. I configure for his ranged attack score. I would like to keep Orion there and aim to ensure that I hit with the tensor lattice, but this assassination attempt is already not really guaranteed. So I go ahead and move Orion to a safer spot, just out of kill box, and with me the objective in the corollary in between Bradigus and I. That way, if I don't succeed in the assassination, Bradigus can't come charging down and chop Orion in half. I go ahead and fire the tensor lattice, boosting both the to-hit and damage rolls. The resulting damage, the damage roll does 8 damage to Bradigus, who chooses not to transfer it. That leaves him on 4 hit points due to some fire damage he took from his feet earlier. Orion then camps the rest of his focus, and I activate the modulator, who moves into the 11-inch firing range. I boost the first attack roll and boost the damage, do 6 damage to Bradigus, which forces him to transfer. I fire the second shot, relying on straight dice, and boost the damage when I do hit, doing exactly the 4 damage needed to kill Bradigus. What an awesome and intense game, having to really rely on some piece trades and chess moves there. Looking at the matchup, I knew it was going to be rough. My list shoots a lot, but it doesn't shoot through armor, and it doesn't handle beast lines that well. Still, I designed it to have all the tools needed to have a game into anything, or so I hope. But I knew everything would go downhill after my feet turned, so I had to get up on attrition by then. Luckily I did, and Bradigus had to commit or lose on scenario, and then he came too far forward, and Orion configured him.
So I made some simple mistakes this game that I think made a huge difference in the outcome. It was a great trading game. I had a lot of fun. I think if I had a chance to go at it again, I'd probably play this game a lot better. But you know, my opponent did a very good job. I enjoyed the game. Hats off to Matt. Congratulations on the victory, and hopefully I can get him next time.